So we'll start with talking about power attacks, which changed pretty significantly since Mark II. The first one is the throw power attack, which is almost completely different, and I'll go over it real quick. Or not completely different, but very different anyway. First of all, double-handed throws are gone. They're not a thing anymore. Along with pushes and weapon locks, they are no longer power attacks you can make. Power attacks are also not special attacks anymore. They're just their own classification of attacks. So anything that stops special attacks specifically isn't going to stop a power attack. The Warjack or Warbeast is still going to be able to do that. So going over throws real quick. Regardless of how many open fists you have, you are still going to be able to make a throw. Anybody makes a throw, it's going to be the same for every Warjack or Warbeast. The example we have here is this Pureblood Warwolf. This could easily be a Warwolf Stalker, even though he only has one open fist. And he's gonna come up here and try to throw this Sentinel. Now, it used to be that you could only make a throw attack within a half-inch melee range, but now throw attacks are based on the melee range of your open fists, in this case 1 inch for the Pureblood Warwolf. This is a pretty big deal for models like the Kraken, who have Chain Strike, and are going to be able to make throws at a huge 4-inch reach. So that's going to be a pretty big deal. So here's what this guy wants to do. Assuming he hits the Sentinel with his melee attack, and then he beats the Sentinel's strength check. If he only had one open fist, he would roll 1 die, but since he has 2, he's going to roll 2 dice, and the Sentinel's going to roll 1, and the Pureblood Warwolf is probably going to win that strength contest. Poor little Sentinel. He's going to pick a model to, either he's going to pick a model to throw at, so we'll say maybe he wants to throw it at this guy. So obviously if he throws it at this guy, he can target any model in his line of sight. He ignores this guy for line of sight because he's picking him up over his head. And he makes a melee attack against this dude. If the attack is in range and he hits, just like Mark II, the Sentinel's going to come out right over here, land on these guys, and smoosh all these Stormblades. It's going to be very sad. Now, if he misses, just like Mark II, we center the Sentinel over this guy's head, and then we deviate him like an AoE to the final point of impact. The difference, one of the biggest differences anyway, is that if this guy was a little bit farther back, let's say he was back here, and unfortunately he's out of range for the Pureblood to throw the Sentinel at him. Now what's going to happen is that, assuming that he does hit the melee attack and everything, the Sentinel's just going to end up moving half of the Pureblood's speed in inches, and this way, or half the Pureblood's strength in inches, and I think that's 5 inches unless he warps strength. The Sentinel's just going to move there and impact. So if the Sentinel still moves 5 inches, even though he doesn't hit the initial target, he's still going to be able to come in and smoosh all these Stormblades. So a big change for throwing there. Obviously makes it much easier, and it makes it possible for even models with only a single open fist to make targeted throws that were previously the domain of only the 2 open fist kind of guys. A couple more changes to how power attacks work, especially throws, is that while in Mark II, a large base model like this, like the Pureblood throwing the Sentinel, would have thrown him an additional inch, that rule's gone in Mark III. So a large base model throwing a smaller base model is only going to throw half his strength, even if it's a big Colossal throwing a puny little light Warjack like that. Obviously, his strength is probably going to be pretty high, so he's going to go pretty far anyway, but that extra inch is just gone. So that's one less thing we have to remember, which is pretty good. Additionally, just as a sort of a clerical thing, it used to be that all power attacks would just deal a damage roll equal to their strength as a collateral damage, or as the damage roll to the target, and now that's defined as a power attack damage roll. So if you see a reference to power attack damage roll, that's just going to be the strength of the model making the power attack. Just cleans things up a little bit. Now, there are some pretty intense rules changes regarding especially Jack Marshals and some of the effects that Jack Marshals provide to their Warjacks. So I'm going to illustrate a little bit of a wombo combo that I love in the new edition. And that is this big old Stormclad right here, and Jack Marshal to the Stormblade Captain. Now, the Stormblade Captain's changed a lot since Mark II. They got some buffs when they're base-to-base with Warjacks. They're still Jack Marshals like they were, but the big thing is that they give reposition 5 to their Warjack, and that is huge. Now that's a drive, and drives, unlike Mark II, where there used to be a command check you'd have to make while the Warjack was in your control or command range, and then if you failed it, it was bad, and you would lose Jack Marshall for a round. A drive is just a passive effect that Jack Marshall gives to their Warjack while it's in their command. So obviously, while this guy is in the Stormblade Captain's command, he's going to have reposition, so he's going to be able to move in, make some attacks, and move out very quickly. But that's not really what I use him for a lot. Now, the way Jack Marshalling works now is very different. It used to be almost a focus you could spend while the Warjack was in the Jack Marshall's command range. You could make an attack, you could charge, you could boost an attack or a damage roll with it. But it was a little less powerful than a focus. You couldn't make power attacks with it, unfortunately. But it's very different now. Now, while the Warjack is in the Jack Marshall's command range, you can choose one benefit, and that benefit affects the Warjack throughout its entire activation. So the 4 new benefits you can gain are Crush, which is an additional melee attack during its activation, and +2 on all melee damage rolls for the activation. Hurry, which is a free run, charge, or power attack without spending focus, and +2 to the charge attack or slam attack rolls during its activation. Strike True, which is +2 on all your attack rolls during its activation, and Take Aim, which is the Warjack is required to aim and gets +2 on all of its ranged damage rolls during its activation. So not quite the same, but some of those abilities are very important. Crush and Strike 2 are 2 of my favorite. They are going to be a big deal on marshaled Warjacks. Now, the biggest deal about this is that the Warjack just needs to start in the Jack Marshall's command range in order to get that benefit. So Jack Marshalls are usually pretty fragile unless they are a unit, which is Jack Marshalling a Warjack. But what that means is that this Stormblade Captain can hide way back here, way outside of the Stormclad's command range, and outside of command range of the Stormclad. The Stormclad's still going to be able to operate a little bit because he can get focus from Arlen Strangeways over here or from these Stormblades. And then the Jack Marshall can run if he needs to. He can run all the way up and then get that Stormclad within his command range of 10 and give them the benefit he needs. Now, unfortunately, a Jack Marshall could still die, and that would be very sad. So somebody takes a gunshot, kills the Jack Marshall. Oh no! We have a little funeral, and everyone is no dry eyes in the house. Everyone's a little tearing up a little bit. The Jack is going to go autonomous, just like it did in Mark II, but that means a couple different things. Autonomous Warjacks are no longer prohibited from gaining focus points, and that's very important for factions with models with Empower, like Arlen Strangeways, or Accumulator, like the Stormclad gets from these Stormblade Infantry. So, even though the Stormclad here doesn't have a Jack Marshall anymore, he's just wandering around wondering what to do, he's still getting focus from these Stormblades, he's still getting focus from Arlen Strangeways, he's still working almost at peak efficiency. Let's say Haley now really wants this Warjack, this autonomous Warjack, just wandering around the battlefield, really wants to bring him back in line. While she used to have to move up and spend her entire action to bond with the Warjack and bring it into her battle group. Now all she needs to do is, during her activation, when she's in base-to-base with the Warjack, she just spends 1 focus and adds the Warjack to her battle group immediately. So pretty big deal, and a lot of times you can do things like Haley could potentially telekinesis herself into melee, or into base-to-base, spend that focus, and then walk backwards out of danger. So obviously it's much easier to bring an autonomous Warjack back into the battle group now, and I think it's going to be a big deal. Now, if another Jack Marshall like Arlen Strangeways wanted to come up and put the Warjack in his under his control, he can come up and he can do basically what old Warcasters used to do. You spend your combat action, you forfeit either your movement or action, and you bring the Warjack under your control. It's now Jack Marshalled on Arlen Strangeways. Unfortunately, Jack Marshall can only control 1 Warjack now. So if Arlen Strangeways was also controlling this little sentinel here, this poor Stormclad would remain autonomous. And now that would be good if Haley was somehow murdered and the Jack was inert, he could bring it back online and make it autonomous. Or if he didn't have the sentinel, he could bring it into his Jack Marshall. But otherwise, he's not going to be able to pick up a second Warjack. So obviously, the changes to Jack Marshall are a big deal. Jack Marshalls now confer much greater benefits onto their Warjacks between Drive and the new Jack Marshall abilities. Autonomous Warjacks aren't quite a liability as they were before, especially Warjacks that had alternative ways of getting focus. So I think this is mainly important for Retribution, who can empower with their Arcanists, Signar with the Stormcloud, obviously, and Crix, who have both War Witch Sirens, and one of the Desecrator can accumulator off Banes as well. Now, moving on to Warcasters specifically, one of the biggest changes to Warcasters is the change to the power field rules, and I know this has been talked about a lot, but I'll cover it real quick. The big change is that for we'll use these beads here to represent focus on Denegra over here, who's been finally cornered by the Signarian military and is being put to death by firing squad, unfortunately. It's not unfortunate. Nobody likes her. She has let's say she has 3 focus points on her, and while in Mark II, each of these focus points would add +1 armor. She'd be armor 17, and all these little long gunners here with their POW 10 guns would have a hard time punching through armor 17. They would have a tough time. Even the Sentinel over here. He can maybe boost, but he's only POW 10. He's not doing a ton of damage. Now, in the new edition, every time a Warcaster suffers damage, and it's from any source, as long as the damage source doesn't specifically say that you can't spend focus to reduce it, you're going to be able to spend 1 focus and reduce the incoming damage by 5. So that means abilities that your caster uses to damage themselves that don't specify that you can't spend focus to negate them, fire rolls and blast damage, non-attacks, lightning leaps, everything like that, you're going to be able to spend 1 focus per damage roll, reduce the damage by 5. Now, with all these long gunners, and they can each aim and shoot twice, this is a lot of incoming shots, and she's only going to be able to reduce 3 of those shots by 5 to take little damage from them. So, obviously, Denegra and most Warcasters in this situation would be pretty hard-pressed to stay alive. Unfortunately, all of these little attacks are going to eventually punch through their power field and are going to be able to kill her. Now, the difference is that, we'll say Denegra has unfortunately been charged by the Stormcloud here. The Stormcloud only has a couple focus, and if she has the same number of focus tokens on her, every time the Stormcloud hits her, and he's going to have trouble, he's going to probably have to boost a hit, so he maybe only gets 1 or 2 good swings in, she's going to be able to reduce all of its attacks by 5. So, in Mark II, the way you can think about this is in Mark II, she would have been armor 17 against the Stormcloud's attacks. Now, in the new edition, she's going to be armor 19 against the Stormcloud's attacks, even if she only has 1 or 2 focus on her, because that's the total number of incoming attacks. She's going to be able to reduce all of those. The issue is when caster gets attacked by a lot of attacks, like all these infantry here. That's when the new focus system gets a little bit less powerful. But I'm really excited to see how this new system plays out on the table and really get the feel for spending that focus to reduce incoming damage. Now, Hordes didn't change quite as much as War Machine. Obviously, with the changes to Jack Marshals and reactivating Warjacks in the power field, the War Machine factions are undergoing some pretty hefty flux. But Hordes did change a little bit. The first example is that a Warbeast with a bunch of Fury points on it. We can grab these focus tokens from Denegra back here, and we'll say those are Fury left on from the last turn. Now, assuming he fails his threshold check at -3, it's a pretty good chance that he's going to. He simply immediately charges. And now, as we talked about before in the first episode, you can't charge a friendly model anymore. So he's going to have to charge the closest enemy. So he's unfortunately going to be forced to charge the Stormblade right here. He's right in the perfect place to get annihilated by the Stormclad, and everything's bad. Now, at the end of that frenzy, he comes in, and it's a charge, theoretically, so as long as he moved 3 inches, his damage roll is going to be boosted, and his attack roll is boosted because of the frenzy rules. He's only going to make 1 attack with his highest POW weapon, still, that rule hasn't changed, and he's not going to be able to do anything else during his activation. However, at the end of the frenzy, you can remove any number of Fury points, so you can just remove 1 or 2 if that's all you need, and maybe keep a couple on him for your cast or your Warlock to use later. Now, what this means, because you can't charge friendly models, is that you can sometimes do some weird things with frenzying. So, let's say we have Mr. Kruger back here. My Kruger's on a really tall, unwieldy base, and sometimes I regret it, but we'll see if he'll stay standing up during this video. We fill this Warbeast up. He comes in, he kills the crap out of the Stormclad. It's very sad, but unfortunately he's full on Fury. Maybe he's primaled. He's probably going to frenzy next turn. So Kruger's like, don't worry about it, bro. I'm going to keep you back here. And Kruger can cast Telekinesis on him to place him 2 inches. Now, placement still allows you to choose the facing of your Warbeasts. So you're going to be able to do something like this. And Place the Warbeast so that it can't see any enemy models. Then, during your next turn, it's going to Frenzy. You're going to be able to remove all that Fury, and it's just going to stand there for a turn. With no eligible targets, it just sacrifices both its movement and action. This is even great for Stalkers because they can Lightning Strike themselves, so they can come in, kill a model or two, and then sprint back, and then at the end of that sprint, they can choose their facing. And Kruger can even TK them back if he needs to. You can also do something like that with Shifting Stones, potentially, to change their facing, or all sorts of fun shenanigans like that. So, Frenzying is potentially a little bit more hazardous, since you can't put models in the way of your Warbeast to really stop them. You can still place models in the way to stop them from making the charge, but they're still going to have to choose enemy models over friendly models. But since you can determine the facing of your Warbeasts, sometimes you can mitigate it. So there'll be a lot of funny little interactions like that. Very similar to War Machine, another real quick change that happened to Wild Warbeasts. They're basically unchanged, except that all a Warlock has to do to bring them back in his battle group, basically exactly like Warcasters, is we'll say maybe Una got punked here and she's going to be dead, and leaves this Rotterhorn wild. Now he's going to have to run, so he'll run wherever he wants. And Chromac can come up. All he has to do is be base to base. He calms down the Rotterhorn. It's okay, buddy. It's all right. Spends one Fury, brings him into his battle group. Boom, done. Super easy and fast. Everybody likes it. It's a pretty great rule. That's probably going to be the end of this episode. There are just a couple more changes. One of the ones that has been talked about a lot is Spirit Bond on Warlocks. Now, that's going to be a rule that allows them to generate one free Fury for every Warbeast that's damaged, or I'm sorry, that's destroyed or removed from play in their battle group. So if Chromac used to have a couple Warpwolf Stalkers, maybe he had 2 Warbeasts in his battle group. Unfortunately, they've been killed, and he's going to have to cut himself for Fury. Every turn, he's going to start getting 2 Fury. So helps mitigate the late game advantage that Warcasters had a little bit, not entirely, but it helped alleviate that a little bit. The last rule, I didn't really have anywhere else to put it, unfortunately, is that it's a change from Mark II. A model with the Arc Node advantage, so a channeling model would be unable to channel while it was knocked down, and now that has been increased to knockdown or stationary, or in melee still. So while it used to be that you could get an Arc Node frozen and it would still be able to channel, unfortunately that doesn't fly anymore. Once that Arc Node's frozen by Sorsha or something like that, it's just going to be a dead weight. So I hope you enjoyed this second episode. Stay tuned for the third one where we cover units and solos, I guess. Mostly units, though.